Hi there, welcome to this build of a 40-inch wingspan Keil Kraft Gypsy. Now it's a lovely Wakefield design by Bill Dean from 1949. Now we started building this Gypsy from a Ripmax kit which I've had a few issues with, and I'm not going to mention any of those today, so we'll move on, but enough to say I've downloaded the plans, the original Keil Kraft plans from AutoZone, because the Keil Kraft ones I couldn't use. So if you want a copy of the plans, have a look in the description below this video and there'll be a link to where you can download them for free. So anyway, you can see that this is coming on really well. I'm really pleased with how it's looking. You can see we've got the wings covered, we've got the main skeleton of the plane finished, and the next job that we need to do is to think about covering the tailplane, the fin and the rudder. So I think that's going to have to come before we start on the fuselage, because I would like to, once I've got these covered up and the tissue on, it's going to make them a little bit heavier. So we can then fit that with the dethermalizer, and we can just see where the CG is going to fall. We can mock it up and we can just make sure we're on track to hit the CG as specified on the plans without adding extra weight, because we want to keep this model really light. I mean, it's nice and light now, and I'm not going to add weight to the front or the back to get this to balance. We've got to work it with the electronics and stuff that we've got that we have to put in. So the next job, as I said, is going to be doing the covering on the tailplane and the fin. Now the tailplane assembly, let's just move that, comes apart. We've got the three components, and so the rudder, the fin and the tailplane, and we're going to cover these independently, separately, and then we can pull them all together. And there's a couple of things that I would just very quickly like to say before I start covering these. Now, I went through the process in quite a lot of detail with the wings. I'm not going to go through that detail because I'm just going to be repeating myself. If you want to see the finer details of how to do the covering and you haven't seen the wing video, then have a look at that. It's in the playlist for this build series. But there are a couple of pertinent points which is how I'm doing this a little bit differently. So we'll take a look at that now. Okay, well, as with the wings, I'm going to be covering this in a two-stage process. First, I'm going to cover it in this 38 micron laminating film. It's got a self-adhesive that's heat activated, and I really like this. It shrinks well, it stretches nicely. Once we've got the laminating film on, we're going to be covering it in this blue and this black tissue. Now the black is going on really nice. The blue is ending up a little bit mottled and a little bit patchy. I'm not 100% happy with it, but I've kind of set out on the design with the wings, so we're gonna stick with that. Now, when I cover the tailplane, I could just do it, or the laminating film, I could just do it in one piece, top and bottom, and then I would have to cut this out here to allow the rudder and, well, the fin to slot down like that. But the problem in doing that is it could well go baggy here, because there's not a lot for this to fasten onto. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the top side at least in two pieces. I'm going to bring a piece right the way along to about here, and then I'm going to fold it down into this slot and just stick it to the inside edge of that, and then I'll do that and stick it to the inside edge of that rib there, and that will give it a lot stronger bond. The tissue I will then put on in one piece, and then I can cut it, being careful not to cut the film. And so we should have a much stronger finish and, like I say, avoid any possible sag. The other option is to put a little bit of a strip, not really a cap strip, but a kind of just a little bit of sheeting on either side, so you have a bigger attachment point. The problem with that is you're adding weight to the tail, which I don't want to do. So we'll have a look at that as we go. Now, covering the rudder and the fin, I'm going to do it slightly different to how I did with the wing, and I'll just set that up now, and then we'll have a look. Now, this technique is really good where you've got structures like these which are pretty flat. You can do it with a tailplane where you've got a little bit of a profile, but it's ideal for this, and it makes it a little bit easier. I mean, it's no big deal doing it the way I did the wings, but what you can do is you get your piece of covering film, and you can see this is glossy, which goes up. You've got the matte side here, which is the glue side, heat activated glue. Just make sure my bench is clean, and all you need to do is just stick this to the table. So we'll put some sticky tape on the corners like this, and we just make sure that we get this nice and taut. So there we go, pull that. Again, nice and taut. A couple of pieces here, a couple of pieces, yeah, just a couple of pieces here, I think. And then once we've got that, which is nice and taut, and we need to make sure when we do it, we're kind of pulling the wrinkles out. You see, that there is really flat. And all we need to do now is just get a scalpel or something. Probably a ruler would be a little bit better. So I'll just get my ruler, and now we can just slide that underneath, and it is a really nice tight fit. And what we can do actually is we could put the fin under as well as the rudder, and we could do these together. And then all we do once we've got that under, just thinking of time here, not wanting to take too long to do this. There we go. I'll move that one over in a bit. Once we've got them like that, we can just run over with our iron now and stick that side down, and then we can do the same to the other side. And we can leave just a little bit of an edge around here to roll that round, just to make sure we get a good seam. So I will get on now and get these covered, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look once it's done. But you can see that's held nice now, and I can just get my Prolux digital heating iron and just go over, and I will do the edges first as I did with the wing and avoid touching this, and then I will shrink it. Right, you can see here now I've got it all stuck down around the perimeter, and I've tried to limit the how hot I've got around the edges. You can see it's gone a little bit transparent here where it's shrunk a little bit from the heat, but I've tried not to shrink any of this internal because I want to make sure I've got it nice and tight on the structure, and then we'll shrink that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut this around the edge with enough that I can take it off the board and just wrap this around, so we get like a little bit of a seam, an overlap between the two pieces of film. There we go. So I will just cut these out, and then I'll do that. Okay, so we've got this one done now, and you can see the overlap there, and we'll just roll that around, and we'll put a little bit of a slit in the top here so we can just get that around nicely without too much creasing. If it does crease, it's not the end of the world, because this stuff really is quite fine, and so the creases do just disappear. But you can see now we've rolled that round, and I'll do the rest of it, and then we'll get this on the board and we'll do exactly the same procedure, and then we can shrink it down. Right, well, I've got the film on this one side. It's not finished, obviously, you can see that, but what I want to do now is just stick this central bit down. And as I said, I'm going to tuck it down between the two ribs, And so I'm just going to put in a bit of a slit there, so it'll fold down easy enough. And at the moment I've just stuck it to this one rib, not this rib, so that should just push down into that slot. Now the problem occurs in trying to get that heated up and stuck on. Well, I've got a small trim iron. It's a Prolux trim iron. I've done a review of this if you want to have a look in the description below, and there's the details. But I do prefer using the trim iron, but we don't need to use it. We can use a blow lamp and a screwdriver, and this is how I used to do it, and it's a very effective technique. Might be getting a bit low on gas, I think, but you just heat up your screwdriver and then you can just stick that there, and you can see that is working just as well as a trim iron. Yeah, I think I'm running out of gas. So we just heat up an old screwdriver and use that. It's a really good way of doing it. But now I think, well, that's done quite a nice job there, but I think I probably will return to my trim iron, because as I said, I'm running out of gas. So let's put that aside, and now I can use this trim iron. I do like using this trim iron. I find it really useful for doing jobs like this, or where you've got to slot fins in, or around servos and hatches. There, that is sticking that down really nicely. So I thought I'd just show you that, and also the screwdriver and the blow lamp technique. So I'll get on and finish this off now. But you can see hopefully how that is stuck down on the inside of there now, and will really give us some purchase when we start shrinking it. It's not gonna pull off, and also when we come to cut that slot, which we'll have to do to fit the fin. Right, I've got this all covered in laminating film now, and I'm ready to start shrinking it. And you can see I've got the slot in the top of the fin. I also realised when I came to do the underside, I needed to do exactly the same procedure here and here, because I have these kind of sub fins, which way I think they go, yeah, they go that way, which slot in the underside there, which I'll need to cover separately, and then I'll glue them in. So I'm going to shrink this now. The film I actually put on with about 115 degrees C, but now I'm going to go to 160 degrees C and just use my iron. Now this film is really good up to quite a high temperature. I've used it up to about 200 degrees, and it's absolutely fine. It goes a little bit tacky, mind, but it does shrink quite nicely. You need to get the temperature really high. Now on the wing I use the hot air gun, but on a small structure like this I quite like using the iron, and you do have more control with the iron. Now when you do this, it shrinks, but also it shrinks a little bit as it cools. So if you've got something a little bit tricky, then it's often worth just heating it up, shrinking it as much as you can, and then seeing if the wrinkle goes out as it cools. So, but you can see that's starting to shrink really nice there. So I'll get the rest of this done, and we'll have a look at it when it's done, and we'll talk about the design for the tissue. So it'd be good to get that done. Right, well, I've now got these shrunk down, and the film's looking great. It's gone really nice, and I started with a nice flat tail plane, and I've still got a nice flat tail plane, you can see. This shrinks really nice. It shrinks quite a lot, but it doesn't have a lot of strength when it shrinks, so it doesn't twist stuff like you can do with film. You can twist it if you're not careful, but you can see this is quite a delicate structure, but it hasn't twisted at all. You often get a little bit of humidity in there, which has actually gone now. You could see it just because there's a little bit of moisture in the balsa and with the heating up, but that looks really nice now. So what I'm going to do is I've got my black and blue tissue that we had a look at earlier. I'm doing the top in blue, and then I'm going to lap that underneath, and then I'm going to do the underside in black. And I really like this black. It's a lovely dense colour, and it really comes out nicely. And then the tail plane and the fin and the rudder, I think I'm going to be doing in black as well, and that will kind of match the design that we're going to do on the fuselage. And of course you'll see that in a slightly later video. So I will get on and get this covered now in the tissue. The tissue, as I think I said earlier, the laminating film, it's a two-stage process. The laminating film will give this some real strength and resilience, durability, whereas the tissue gives it a lovely vintage look. So it looks like a vintage model, but it's got a little bit of modern day strength and resilience to it. So I'll get on and do that now. Well, I've now got the tail assembly, all the components of it covered, and I'm really pleased with how it's looking. You can see I've got the tail plane on there, and I've done a little strip of black here, and that's going to tie in with the black on the wings and the fuselage. I'm going to do the fuselage black. I kind of ummed and ahed about it. I saw a original advert for this in Aero Modeler in 1949, I think it was, and you can see here and how it's got the light wings and the dark body and dark fin. Now I know that probably wasn't black, it's a black and white picture, so you can't tell what colour it was, but I just thought, you know, that might look quite nice with black, and this is a really nice black tissue, so I thought let's go for it. So we've got that done. We've got the underside of the wings and the tail plane in black. It's all going to be a nice matte black, and the fin and the rudder assembly are going to be black. Still got those to hinge and assemble, and we've got these sub fins that will need to go on the underside of the tail plane. When you do the covering on things like these sub fins, and even on the wing tips where you wait for the tissue to dry a little bit and cut it, and then it can be a little bit lumpy, and the best thing you can do is a hot iron, not too hot. I think I use it about 135 degrees, and I just go around, and any little bits of tissue that are sticking up, just kind of flatten down. Any creases get flattened, and it even helps, I think, it stick because it perhaps softens a polyurethane a little bit. So I've been around all of these and just made sure it's nice and smooth and ready to be assembled now. But this is really starting to take shape, and I feel quite excited about how this is looking. You can see the blue has come out mottled, but again, at least it matches the wings. I've been experimenting with the tissue, and I think it's just the makeup of the tissue really, not the application, but it is what it is, and to be honest, it's kind of growing on me, so I don't mind. So I'm going to draw this video to a close now anyway, and I think in the next video I'm going to be doing the hinging and getting that tail assembly all pulled together. It's not going to be fixed on permanently because it's got the dethermalizer and held on with elastic bands. So, but it would be nice to get it all hinged and assembled. So anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and please come back and see how we get on with the journey of this 40-inch wingspan Keil Kraft Gypsy. Thanks very much for watching.